Before Wall Street reigned, a single immigrant family quietly purchased farmland beneath the city, transforming raw pelts into the Manhattan land that would define New York's future. The Astors did not sell their property, they leased it, outlasting competitors and amassing fortunes that rivaled nations. But how did one outsider rewrite the rules of American wealth? And what secrets did this dynasty's ground lease empire leave buried beneath modern skyscrapers? The answer begins at America's dawn. John Jacob Astor stepped onto New York's docks in the aftermath of the Revolutionary War, a young German immigrant with little more than ambition and a sharp eye for trade. He found his first opportunity in fur, navigating a world where beaver pelts were as valuable as gold. Astor bought hides from trappers and Native American traders, then shipped them to London, where European demand drove prices ever higher. Each season, profits grew. By 1800, Astor's fortune had swelled to $250,000, a staggering sum in a city still finding its shape. The business expanded relentlessly. Astor forged connections up the Hudson, across the Great Lakes, and into the Canadian wilds. He sent agents west and built networks reaching as far as Montreal and the Great Plains. In 1808, he founded the American Fur Company, chartered to dominate the North American fur trade. The company's reach stretched from the forests of the Midwest to the bustling ports of Canton and London, funneling wealth back to New York. Astor's methods were calculated. He watched market cycles, bought in bulk, and sold at the peak. When war disrupted trade, he diversified, sometimes even turning to the opium trade in China as a sideline. Every deal brought more liquidity, more capital, and a growing reputation as one of America's sharpest businessmen. By the early 19th century, Astor was no longer just a trader. He was the richest man in the young republic, holding the cash and connections that would soon allow him to buy something far more enduring than furs, the very ground beneath New York City. By 1799, John Jacob Astor began quietly assembling parcels of Manhattan farmland, guided by a conviction that land would outlast any trade. Where others saw rocky fields and distant meadows, Astor saw the future city. He paid cash for lots just north of settled New York, acquisitions that included what would one day become Times Square. But Astor's true innovation lay in how he used these holdings. Rather than selling land outright, he offered tenants 21-year ground leases. The terms were simple but transformative. Tenants financed and constructed their own buildings, from modest shops to multi-story boarding houses. When the lease expired, every improvement, every brick, and every beam reverted to Astor's ownership at no cost. The land itself was never for sale. This system meant Astor's wealth grew not just through rising land values, but through the steady accumulation of buildings erected by others. Each lease renewal brought higher rents, while the family's property portfolio expanded without the risks or expenses of construction. By the early 1800s, Astor's annual rental income rivaled that of established banks. The model created a perpetual revenue stream, immune to market swings and the uncertainties of commerce. Astor's strategy set the pattern for all who followed. Generations of Astors would inherit not just land, but a machine for compounding wealth, a system where time itself worked in their favor. The city's relentless growth turned Astor's early purchases into the bedrock of a dynasty, with every new street and building feeding the family's fortune for decades to come. By the time William Backhouse Astor inherited the family estate, the Astor holdings had become an empire unto themselves. The land portfolio, once a handful of speculative lots, now stretched across the city's most valuable corridors. By 1875, the estate was valued at nearly $50 million, an amount unimaginable for the era. The Astors controlled over 700 buildings, from commercial storefronts on Broadway to dense rows of tenements in what would become Midtown and the Upper West Side. The scale was staggering. Rents flowed in from thousands of tenants each month, and every new lease meant another building constructed at someone else's expense, only to revert to the Astors at term's end. But the sheer reach of this empire brought scrutiny. Critics in newspapers and City Hall accused the family of absentee landlordism, pointing to crumbling tenements and overcrowded blocks under Astor leases. Reformers labeled them slumlords and blamed the ground lease system for neglect and squalor. While William Astor invested in renovations and public institutions, the accusations lingered. The family's financial success was undeniable, but the moral cost of their methods was becoming impossible to ignore. Caroline Schermerhorn. Astor presided over New York society with an authority that rivaled any monarch. Her Fifth Avenue ballroom stood at the heart of this world, its gilded walls hosting gatherings that set the boundaries of social acceptance. Ward McAllister, her trusted confidant, famously declared that only 400 people truly mattered in New York, the number, he claimed, who could comfortably fit into Mrs. Astor's ballroom. Invitations to her annual ball were coveted and fiercely guarded. Entry depended on more than wealth. Family lineage, impeccable reputation, and participation in select cultural institutions counted for far more than a bank balance. Those who failed to meet these standards, no matter how rich, remained outside the circle. The 400 became both a list and a legend, a living register of who was permitted to belong. Opera boxes at the Metropolitan, seats on charitable boards, and memberships in exclusive clubs reinforced this hierarchy. Through these rules, Mrs. Astor shaped not just who attended her parties, but who would be remembered as part of the city's social history. In her world, the true currency was acceptance, and the price was conformity to her vision of respectability. In the closing years of the 19th century, family rivalry rose from drawing rooms to the very skyline of Manhattan. In 1893, William Waldorf-Astoria raised his father's mansion on Fifth Avenue at 33rd Street, and he commissioned the Waldorf Hotel in its place. The 13-story structure, clad in stone and crowned with turrets, redefined luxury. Its ballrooms and private suites became the new gathering place for the powerful. Presidents, financiers, and foreign dignitaries all passed through its doors. But the gesture was more than ambition. It was a pointed challenge to his cousin John Jacob Astor IV, whose mother Caroline still ruled the city's social world next door. John Jacob Astor IV answered in kind. 4 years later, he demolished his own family's adjoining mansion and opened the Astoria Hotel in 1897, which was taller and grander still. The two hotels, separated by little more than pride, soon stood side by side, their rivalry echoing the family feud that shaped them. Yet business sense prevailed over stubbornness. That same year, a marble corridor called Peacock Alley joined the Waldorf and the Astoria, creating a single, sprawling hotel complex. Within its gilded halls, the Waldorf-Astoria became the unofficial royal court of America, a stage for the nation's elite to parade, negotiate, and celebrate beneath crystal chandeliers. Here, family conflict became public spectacle, rendered permanent in stone and marble for all of New York to see. On the night of April 15, 1912, John Jacob Astor IV, once the richest passenger aboard the RMS Titanic, was lost to the Atlantic. He died at age 47, and his death sent shockwaves through New York's corridors of power. The Astor estate, valued at nearly $87 million, passed to his young son Vincent, but the world that had made such fortunes possible was already slipping away. Just 1 year later, Congress enacted the federal income tax. For the first time, inherited wealth faced a permanent progressive levy. Estates like the Astors could no longer pass untaxed from generation to generation. The new law, signed in October 1913, forced the sale of prized holdings to meet tax obligations, chipping away at the foundations of dynastic power. The city itself was changing too. The private palaces of Fifth Avenue, once symbols of unassailable status, became relics in an age of skyscrapers and speculative towers. In 1926, Mrs. Astor's mansion at 840 Fifth Avenue fell to the wrecking ball. Where gilded ballrooms had once set the boundaries of society, a new apartment building rose in their place. The age of hereditary landlords and social arbiters was over. The Astor name remained, but the world it ruled had vanished. Today, the Astor name is carved into street signs and faded foundations, but their true legacy is the city's blueprint, where land still rules and fortunes are made beneath our feet. Power shifts, but ownership endures. In New York, the ground remembers what society forgets. Thank you for watching.